The biggest jam session of its kind in 20 years, in a country where American ideas are politically taboo. An event that brought big stars, the Indigo Girls, Bonnie Raitt, Jimmy Buffett, and others to Cuba.
A musical exchange, which in essence means it's a people exchange. And amen to that.
But musicians like the Indigo Girls say cultural collaboration can transcend politics.
We're making history together, right here in this hotel, in these rooms, making beautiful music together.
Cuba's way too cool. Not only do I love this kind of music, but the opportunity to open up our two countries to appreciating each other more realistically and hopefully allowing musicians to go back and forth more freely is my aim here. I think it's fantastic.
It's a first for our two countries. The excitement to have 50 artists that you take anywhere in the world is a tremendous feat, let alone to take them to Cuba and have them work for a week with some of the finest artists worldwide.
It's the first time in the history of the U.S. embargo where it was you were allowed to actually do an affirmative act of creating art.
Very exhilarating being here. Musically, it's unbelievable. It's like being in music camp, you know, in a way. People writing in every room being occupied, your guitars, it's sort of like the old days.
All right, let's hear the ending. Ending. Makes my life come.
Second bridge coming up.
You got people recording, you got some brilliant musicians from Cuba and brilliant musicians from the States that are here.
The truth of the matter is we have a lot to learn from Cuban music. The Cuban artists here are awesome. That's why we're so enthused to bring Cuban art and music to the United States, because they're awesome.
I really would like to see more help come in for their spirits, for their medical supplies, for their musical instruments. You know, we're just from human to human.
There probably hasn't been a rock concert like this in this country ever, so that this has to be treated as an extraordinary week in the history of the United States and Cuba.
Yes, of course, I am so excited tonight because we are going to see something special.
On behalf of all the American and European artists who are here today, we want to say thank you very much for opening your hearts and allowing us into the country of Cuba.
This will really be a watershed moment. I think years from now we'll look back on this as the turning point where the artists led the way once again to a change in policy, which is desperately needed.
There were some in Havana over the weekend who described what they saw as emotional. Some said it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. History was made in Cuba yesterday.
Well, there was a musical handshake last night. Did you hear it? Did you hear any of the music?
I did hear some of it, and it was organized by an organization called Music Bridges Around the World. It's a California organization, and what they put together was a project that brought a lot of major American artists here to Havana for a week, and they worked with a lot of Cuban artists. It culminated last night in a big concert at of course, the Karl Marx Stadium, which was somewhat ironic, and artists like Bonnie Raitt, Jimmy Buffett. I think you see Bonnie Raitt and Mick Fleetwood on the stage there. A number of fairly large names. Lisa Loeb came here, worked with the Cuban artists, and then it all ended in this concert last night with that big song there, a Latin version of Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
So this is how the century is ending, with NATO, which is the principal defensive alliance of the West, now on the attack on a rogue dictator who grew out of the collapse of communism. In this part of the world, the man who still personifies the old order, Fidel Castro, he was the genial host of a first ever festival of American baseball, world-class rock and roll, and good times.
It's easy to say that this is not a political event, but the world being what it is, it is.
Singer Jimmy Buffett in Cuba for the third time, now in a sanctioned songwriting festival and concert blending two cultures.
Historically, artists have fueled thinking about different ways to do different things. And if that's what this weekend of baseball and rock and roll coming to Cuba does, then I think it's good for everybody in the long run.
Room 838. This is how music and history are made. Diplomacy with a rock and roll beat. Drummer Stewart Copeland, founder of the Police, one of more than 100 musicians here by special permission, as the Clinton administration launches a new strategy, expose the Cuban people to what they're missing.
Hi, Mom and Dad. Here we are in Cuba with Kiki Corona.
Hi, pleased to meet you.
She is Lisa Loeb, Grammy-nominated recording artist from Dallas, Texas. He is Kiki Corona, pop music heartthrob from Havana, Cuba. Together, bridging 40 years of forbidden contact. That's the mission of 100 American and Cuban musicians here creating new songs.
Sí, un poco más sexy.
A little high school Spanish from Lisa, and a love song emerges, one that carries political undertones.
And I'm not coming back.
Because it's a double entendre thing there for a lot of Cubans who had left and have not been back.
The percussionist that we used was from Cuba, and he hadn't been here for 40 years, and this was the first time he was coming back.
I was the first one here when this opened.
Cuban refugee Walfredo de los Reyes, who now lives in California.
A lot of people have been hurt, and I think it's enough time that people get together with each other and say, how are we going to fix this?
But for now, the legacy is in their song, part Havana,
Ya nada puede ser mejor que esta canción.
and part Dallas.
You don't want to know, you don't want the reason I'm letting go, and I'm not coming back.
The sound of crumbling barriers, creating music.
What's your favorite thing you ever did?
And making history.
There's something about Cuba that captures your heart, either the kindness of the people or the beauty of the beaches or the mountains. There's something here, and I think a lot of it has to do with the music and the culture.